Hi, facilitators. Welcome to our Facilitator First Friday. Thank you to Teresa Carter for organizing our live session today. It's such a great and fun thing that I look forward to seeing you every month and checking in and learning from the expertise that's in our very group. It's pretty exciting. So thanks for joining us today. Today, I'm really excited to spotlight Dr. Jill Ries from Racine School District, who's one of our certified facilitators. She was certified in December, as I recall. And she's going to tell us about her grassroots effort to help teachers come together to improve their personalized and blended learning practice for a group of middle schools. And so she's going to talk to us about an initiative she started to help these teachers who serve grades 6, 7, and 8. And they're running a blended and personalized program. How she brought them together to make it happen for those teachers and help them support each other. So Jill, welcome. Can you just introduce yourself?
Thank you. Yeah, of course. So like Heather said, I'm Dr. Jill Ries and I work in the Racine Unified School District. It's in in the southeastern part of Wisconsin and very close to the Illinois border. We're an urban district of about 30,000 students. 23,000 students. We have about 33 schools. So we're a large urban district. We do get a lot of transient students from across the border and different districts in Wisconsin and so on and so forth. But we had about 4 years ago, a real big epiphany in our middle schools. What was happening was our students were here for elementary school, then they would leave and go to private school, a lot of them for middle school, then they'd come back for high school. And so we took it very seriously and looked very seriously at what do we need to do at middle school to improve that and to bring some of those families back. So that's kind of where this big personalized learning initiative came in and where we've started to make some movement.
And so how many classrooms are more personalized now as a result of this 4-year effort?
So that's a really good question. The initiative was that 100% would be personalized by the end of 3 years, but we all know that 100% is I don't know, if you put 100% in a SMART goal, it's not very smart. So I would say right now we're probably at about 60%.
And how many schools is that?
Degrees.
And how many schools is that you're supporting with the?
So we have 6 middle schools, but then we have, within that, there's some K-8s. And then we also have 2 schools that are 6 through 12. So they also have middle schoolers at their school. But for district purposes, those 2 schools haven't had some of the same training that the other schools have. So teachers that are personalizing in those environments, that's truly a grassroots effort or a piece where they're reaching out to other colleagues in other schools and learning on their own.
And when you say that all of those 60% of all those streams are blended and personalized, what does that mean? What does that look like?
So that really is, again, a spectrum. So some of it is looking at, like Heather, when you put out those different models like station rotation and flex and a la carte and all that, there's different delivery models from many of the teachers. So even though they are looking at curriculum and learning targets through different eyes, the delivery model they're using might be different. So we have a large portion of teachers using a station rotation model. And then we have another section of teachers moving into more a la carte with student voice and choice in their learning.
Mm-hmm. And are they all using the same online content providers for those stations and for the a la carte, or?
We have a few things that are district-wide, and then teachers can put in technology requests for things they would like to try that are not district-wide things. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I have a million questions for you. Jump in there. For the stations, are the teachers primarily creating their own stations, or is there a group approach to that?
So that's a really good question. And that brings up kind of some of these events we've been hosting, because really there's not like a a bank of strategies or a district model we use for that. So it really was them meeting on their own or meeting in their collaborative teams at their schools to come up with what they were going to do in those station rotations. But part of this is trying to give, from my perspective, trying to give them the opportunity to even talk to people in other schools to find out the tips and strategies and things they're doing that are having great success.
Okay, so facilitators, I want you to put yourselves in Jill's shoes for a minute. So 3 to 4 years ago, she is charged with helping teachers personalize and blend learning. The big reason for that is that their middle school students, many of them are leaving to go to private schools. They're trying to bring students back. So this is the problem that they're trying to solve. And they're finding that their hope is that by having a more personalized environment, that more students will feel like their needs are being met in those middle schools. Mm-hmm. About 60% of all classrooms across these middle schools are now doing some kind of blended or personalized. It's a spectrum. Some are doing station rotation. Some are doing more like fully a la carte online courses, maybe more like a flex environment where it's mm-hmm. with some on-site teacher support would be my guess. And you have thought, how do we help these teachers? They're all over the board. They aren't even necessarily using the same online content. It sounds like a lot of them are making it up on the fly as they go. It doesn't sound like you're a very top-down district. It sounds more like you're letting the teachers in a grassroots way design their own student experiences. Is that all fair to say?
Well, there's some things that really top-down and some things aren't. So it's really a mix of both.
What are a couple of the top-down things that you are imposing almost or providing structurally?
So one of the top-down thing was that really from the district strategic plan that 100% of people would be blending and personalizing. But like I said, we know from SMART goals that 100% isn't always reality. So when we actually look at the real numbers and look at what people are really doing, it's more like that 60%. The other thing is we do have, so I can name some programs, but we do have online programs that are given out to everybody that are supposed to be used by everybody. So some of the content is top down, but not all of it.
Okay. So it sounds like a second problem that you're addressing is what do we do with the reluctant teachers, that 40% that aren't making this transition yet? And how do we make this doable and possible and shine a light on the teachers that are doing the work, so they're supported, and hopefully they can bring along their maybe reluctant colleagues. So that brings us up to March 7th of 2018. Jill brought together 20 teachers, 20 middle school teachers across these different schools, and she created this day for personalized learning, raising the bar and moving to the next level, she called it. And it was this meeting for teachers to come together and build capacity. Jill, what did you do during that meeting? It was a day-long event.
No, actually, it was just about a 2-hour event. So it was a real short thing. And so part of the work that I do also is I work with district coaches. So I have 20 coaches that work in the schools. And so through meeting with coaches, part of this was collaborative effort with them, just saying we really need to reach out to teachers and give them a platform to share with each other. And that's where this event came in. So that was really, during that time, it was classroom teachers coming with their best tips and strategies for their classroom to share with other teachers. So for example, them saying, these are the tools, these are the things I use, this is how I group my kids, this is how I use data to inform what I'm doing, this is how I give students voice and choice. And then these are some tools I'll share with you, another teacher, that you can use in your classroom. And so that's what that time was spent on. We had teachers reach out at the end saying, we need session 2. We need we finished session 1 now, we need, next steps. So the teachers that were there said, we need another one. We need to do this again or more. We need, a step 2. So it was really cool.
So just to be clear, did you have 20 coaches in the room plus 20 teachers?
So no, I had 6 coaches plus the 20 teachers.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like there was a lot of share out from the teachers of what were their challenges and what was working. How did you structure that share out?
So it was very, again, it was very low key. So I really drew on their expertise. And so they sent me a brief paragraph about what they were going to be sharing and what they were going to be doing. And then I left it up to them. So it was grouped by subject. And so there was a math teacher that was sharing tips and strategies from his personalized classroom. There was an ELA or English language arts teacher sharing from his classroom. And so like the ELA teacher had a PowerPoint that he went through. And actually the ELA teacher is a blended learning live facilitator. So he had some really cool things from his.
Who was it?
Dan Kanapasek.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Kono.
Nice. So he had a very specific way in which he was sharing, and he went through a bunch of things with Blended Learning Live and then how he uses those tools in his classroom. And then we actually had a bilingual ELA teacher there that was sharing different, how she uses data to put her groups together, how she uses coding strategies for language and things like that with the different groups. So just really top-notch things, and the teachers really walking away with just a bevy of resources and saying, we need more.
Wow. And so they shared what their paragraphs and their main ideas. And then was there a moment for question and answer? And then the next teacher did and shared, like, is that the basic flow of it?
Yeah, it was really just them sharing and then the teachers asking questions and them sharing more resources. So the bilingual teachers had tons of visual anchor charts. They just plastered the room with all these anchor charts and visuals, and the whole room was full of that. So those teachers could pick up on that, and then they used Post-it notes to engage people. Like I said, Dan had a PowerPoint that he went through and then some handouts for people. The math teacher had brought his computer and projected a bunch of he projected actually students doing work from his classroom and then how his room was set up and different tools and strategies that he uses. He took people into some of the accounts that he uses for like Flipgrid and some different things like that and how he uses that and showed people that. So it was really, even those were highly personalized based on the teacher strengths that were doing the presentation.
So I understand that structure now, and it's starting to get clear in my mind that you spent about 2 hours with this one at a time share out, this 20 teachers, what was working for them and what were their challenges. Looking back, would you repeat that same structure if you were to schedule a 2-hour professional learning opportunity for teachers to support each other in a blended environment? How you would do it again, or are there things you would change?
So I don't know if anybody else runs into this, but finding time with teachers is a challenge because everybody's super busy. And so when we set up that time, we really tried to be cognizant of that we weren't setting up something that people wouldn't even be able to attend right off. So I do think that without having an early release or a staff learning day set aside, I believe that the time frame worked well because it met teachers' needs. Also, we planned far enough ahead that people could make arrangements so they could be there because it was after school. The other thing I believe I would do that same thing again. The other thing is I know that we had food and that is super helpful.
Yes, it is. It is for me. That actually answered one of our write-in questions was this part of a scheduled PD day? But it sounds like, no, you did it after school. You lured people in with food. Mm-hmm. It was just an optional, join us if you can.
Correct. And so I was just reminiscing with a couple of coaches the other day because one of the online tools we use is a program called Alex. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. It's a really powerful math tool. And we have 2 groups. So with that district initiative, we have a group of people that was given, here's your Alex licenses, you have to use it. And then after that went through, we had some extra licenses. So I was able to say, is there anybody else interested? Would anybody use these? And so I had about 4 teachers reach out that are interested. But the funny thing is, which is like, we all know this, those teachers that were able to say, hey, I really want to try it, they are so much farther ahead than the people that were given the licenses and said, you have to use these, and this is what the district initiative is.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And so it was it helped light a fire to see their peers using the tools.
Absolutely. And so I think that the way we structured this after school event is kind of like that. It's lighting a fire with people that really want to be there and people that really are invested in learning more and trying new things.
Because that was another right in question was, how did you choose the original round of teachers? It sounds like it was optional. You just made it available to everyone, but some teachers, it was at one campus and there were teachers from all sorts of campuses that had to drive over to attend it. Is that right?
Right. But I can tell you one of our administrators was so super helpful. So he offered some teacher incentives if they attended. And so it wasn't like monetary or food, but he offered some incentives to like take their recess duty or do different things with them if he could prove they attended. And he actually attended the event also to see who was there.
Oh, wow.
That was really cool.
Wow. Good for you and good for him.
Yeah.
Let's move for a minute to the actual content of the conversation. What were some of the challenges that you heard surface the most? Were there themes that emerged from all these different teacher share-outs? Middle school teachers, they've been doing this 3 years. They're all doing it slightly differently, concocting their own version of what personalization even looks like. What roadblocks are they hitting?
So some of you maybe hear these same things from your teachers, but there's a continual conversation in our district about technology access. Mm-hmm. So we're not a one-to-one district. We do have some limitations in different buildings, but technology access is one of the things that, they continue to give feedback on, and some of it's legitimate, some of it is legitimate. So that's one of the roadblocks that we run into. Another thing is, every now and then, and it wasn't a lot of people, but I heard from a couple teachers in a couple of the sessions, so for example, Dan Konopasek is at a very distinct school in the district. And so his population might not be the same as a population in one of the other schools. So then the transfer for those people, and verbally they say, well, how do we transfer that to our population of students? And so talking through that transfer. And so he's at a higher demographic, higher socioeconomic school than some of the other teachers. And so making that transfer is something he had to talk through with teachers. He didn't always teach at that school, so he could verbalize what he did and any changes he made. But I can foresee if teachers come in with that attitude, that the presenter needs to be able to talk through that.
Mm-hmm. Any other themes in terms of problems people were running into or really wanted to problem solve together?
I think the problem solving together came in with the presenters sharing their strategies and tips, and other people saying, oh, I tried this and it didn't work so well. And then the presenter saying, well, maybe if you switch this or try this. So it was very specific to different things the presenter was sharing. One of the things I can tell you is that and this isn't necessarily related to that night, but related to our initiative overall, is one of the middle schools. So the principal put out a challenge at the end of last year that everybody had to take one period and do at least station rotation with it. And so what happened was he had a couple of what I would call actual resistors that came to him and said, okay, well, we haven't done much with this. We're willing to give it a shot, but we also need you to give us the opportunity to fail. And he said, I'm good with that. I'll do it. Well, what happened was with those couple people, it was 3 teachers in particular, they saw such a turnaround in their student behavior from that little project they were doing that the word spread like wildfire in the building. And all of a sudden, other people were coming to them and saying, what are you guys doing? And how can we try some of this? And so within probably a couple weeks, they had, I would say over 50% of the teachers that he talked to had already started trying in one class and moved on to other classrooms. So that again is kind of that grassroots thing and gets to the problem solving that you're talking about. And so that part was in that night when we had those teachers in, some of those things came up. Like we're a little bit apprehensive to try this because we're letting go of some control in the classroom. So what are some of the things you're seeing that help you regain more control actually with your classroom and more student responsibility with your classroom through this process? And so those are a lot of the questions we see because people are very apprehensive about giving up that control.
Jill, one of the things you're saying that's so interesting to me is that, you know, that theory that if a butterfly flaps their wings, it actually can lead to enough chain reactions that
Butterfly effect, yeah.
Wind, like across the ocean. And what you're saying is fascinating to me. It was just a simple 2-hour meeting that you said has led to these ripple effects across lots of teachers in all of these buildings. Fascinating to think that for as much as we say it's so hard to get reluctant people on board, it could be as simple as having really great muffins after school.
With pizza.
And a good structure and a nice leader who was there to offer some credibility and support and letting it speak for itself. So let me ask you then, what were some of the successes that were being talked about? Because there must have been some energy in the room around this is working or that's working. What were some of the things that were working that you think helped create that energy that then spread outside and beyond the meeting?
So a couple of the people were able to talk about what their data looked like, and that's the real meat that says, hey, this is working. So Dan brought some data, the bilingual teachers brought some data, and the math teacher brought some data too, to just talk about how, so we use NWEA map testing in our district. And as everybody knows, that has different connotations with it. There's people that love it. There's people that really don't love it so much. But for what it's worth, it's a standardized normed assessment, and we do use it. So with the teachers being able to say, you know, these are some of the strategies and things that we did, and here's what our data looks like, and here's what our data looked like before, and here's what it looks like now. That is where the rubber hit the road for people, for them to be able to say, oh, wow. So I can give you an example for math. And I don't have Ryan's exact data, but overall for math, because I really work with the teachers to put in a more workshop blended approach to math. And I don't know if any of you are math teachers, but math teachers are very linear. So this is a real challenge for them. That if we look at some of the tools and things we're using, we look at these approaches. And then when I physically talk to kids, I just talked to a kid yesterday who said, my map scores went up 7 points. You know, so that's some of the data that this math teacher was sharing. You know, his data, he was saying, I've had more kids go up more points on the NWE assessment this term than I have in the past. And so for him to be able to say that and show the strategies and tips he's using and the online tools he's using and the approaches he's using is super powerful.
You have a question from Shelly Gilmore. Hi, Shelly. And that was, what additional vendors do you use for digital content?
So we use, Alex is our big math one right now. For elementary, much to my chagrin, and I apologize if I'm speaking ill of a place, but we use Compass, and we're not going to be using it after this year because it's going away. They got bought out. But we're piloting a program called Happy Numbers, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. It's K3, but it will be K5 next year, which we're feeling really good about. So we're looking at using that elementary-wide. For literacy, we have a number of different tools we're using for literacy, but we use a program called Lexia for our special populations, and that's a super powerful literacy tool also. So those are some of the big picture ones we use. There's then a lot of other little things we use for intervention, like we use Dreambox for intervention. And these are probably ones that everybody's heard of because they're kind of big names around. Shelly, does that answer your question? Okay.
I'll ask one more question, and while I do, we have 5 minutes left. So facilitators, if you want to just tell me in the group chat that you have a question, then I can call on you for the last 5 minutes. It would be great to hear some other voices. So it sounds like this is starting to help you, Jill, to bring more reluctant teachers on board. Do you have other strategies that you have in mind for supporting teachers who might be reluctant to make this mindset shift?
The other big thing we do is with our embedded coaches is that they are, so the coaches I work with teachers on coaching cycles. And so they're embedding this language, these initiatives, this purpose into their coaching cycles. So when we meet together, like for example, one of our last coach meetings, we talked about playlists and we talked about hyperdocs, and how as coaches, they could use that to coach their teachers in those types of things. So not only in using those types of things for station rotation, but giving kids voice and choice through a playlist and things like that. So I'm trying to also build their capacity so they can impact in their embedded roles in the buildings. And so they've been able to be very specific with specific teachers about that. And then they can go in and model and be side by side with teachers too.
Okay. Hi, Julie. It's good to see you. I was glad to get to work with your counterpart last month, Scott. Share your question with Jill, will you?
Hi.
Hi.
Is Jill, do you have any advice? You were talking about getting teachers on board. What about the campus admin?
So that's a really good question. So for the first 2 years, we brought them in quarterly to be part of the planning and part of the structuring of what this was going to look like. The thing I can tell you, Julie, though, and you probably already realize this, is everybody then takes that back to their building, and based on their leadership style, they implement it kind of in their own style, right? So some, in my eyes, would be really high level implementation, and some would be not so high level implementation. So we've assigned specific administrators from the district to each school. So like I have a school that I do specific coaching with for some of these strategies, and that has seemed to help. Is we also then are embedded coaching for the administrators.
Gotcha.
And Kelly, will you share your question?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jill. This has been great. Just wondering if you have any specific coaching practices or cycles you use. Do you use the Gem Night work? Is there other work that you use to guide it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I stepped into the district, we were using a model called results coaching. And I came into the district with experience with Gym Night and most lately, Elena Aguilar, The Art of Coaching. And so what we're using is really a combination of all those things. And the other piece is cognitive coaching, actually. And I know that goes way back, but it's good stuff. So, so we use really a combination of all those things. But our coaches have also gone through a transformation. They started out as educator effectiveness coaches, just coaching around educator effectiveness, not coaching in classrooms. So as we've moved into this really instructional coaching realm, I really brought together all those pieces. So I rely a lot, especially this last year, on Elena's work. And also I started to get into some additional pieces, like I have these books on my desk. Some of the, like, I don't know if you guys have seen this, Lean In. So some of these pieces too, honestly, all of our coaches are women at this point for whatever reason. So really looking at, you know, female leadership and those things and really coaching around that. But good question, because we use a bevy of things, but it's really, the heart of it is really Jim's work and Elena's work.
Thank you.
That's our time. It is so nice to see all of you. And for those of you who are watching this asynchronously, I'm glad that you're tuning in. I hope these are valuable to you. If any of you would like to share your story or your work with me and with our group. We would love it if you'd be a network contributor in that way. So please reach out to Teresa Carter or me, and we'll slot you in for a session like this. It's very, very helpful to everyone else to hear about what you're doing. And Jill, one thing that really strikes me from your experience is how you found a small and simple way to help create something much bigger. And so I love seeing big results from small efforts. That's fun and powerful, something we can all learn from. So reach out to us if anyone else will participate. There's some great group chat happening right now. Teresa will post this for us. Thank you again for Teresa. Thanks to all of you. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and keep moving forward with your journeys.
Thank you.